right, we are live.
We're live?
So I'm just
Oh my.
gonna grab the link and then you can send it.
Sure
Oh,
thing.
I just pray that this doesn't crash my computer because usually I do this with my like iMac, which is a lot better processing power. But I'm doing this off of a MacBook Air.
Oh my.
Uh, Come on.
Actually gives me enough time to have a swig of water.
Yes. Why isn't it allowing me to access the link? Oh, my computer's like so slow right now.
It's having a moment. Eh?
Yeah. Well, because it's just uploading all the data now that it's live, and then I'm trying to like
Right.
go to the actual YouTube page, find the
Oh.
link, and then send it to you, and then your friends and coworkers can watch, and then we can start.
For sure, for sure.
Actually, let's see if I can find it on my iPad. Okay.
It's funny the delay on the video is like catching things I've done 10 seconds ago. So I've just weirded out like me looking to the side or the left. I'm like, I'm not doing that right now.
Okay, so copying the link. LinkedIn. I'm gonna send it to you on LinkedIn.
Sure.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
I'm not going to click on it because then my computer will have a heart attack.
Yeah.
There we go. Fire it off to the team. And roll.
Okay, great. Um, I don't even. Oh, we do have one viewer. They are welcome to add comments, or maybe that viewer's you. I don't even know.
No, it's not me.
Okay.
I did just post it to a coworker, so it
Okay.
might be them.
All right. Let's let's put on some intro music again. All right. 52 minutes later, we are on.
Perfect.
So we're recording. We are live. Should we just get into it? I guess.
Yeah, let's forge ahead.
Okay. Cool. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Collab Collective podcast. We are doing something brand new and literally just off the fly. We are live streaming right now. It was not planning to, but I have a special guest. We have Elliot Mayer, and I know him through John Bantados and Red Academy. And so, yeah, today's just going to be unscripted, but we're starting um, a new podcast series or live stream series. It's called Freelance Fridays, but today's a Tuesday. But yeah. Anyways, so this is how we do. Like this I feel like is representative of 2020 for me. Is just like try new things, figure it out as you go. We were tackling like technical issues, but we're just gonna do it, and that's how you start. Like you start with small steps and go from there. So, yeah,
Exactly.
momentous occasion. Anyways, Elliot, we're really happy to have you here. We're here, or you're here to share with us like a little bit of your journey as a designer. You've done some web design prior to Red Academy, and so maybe you can share with
Mhm.
us a little bit about your background, what you do now, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure thing. Yeah. Thanks. Very happy to be here. Um, oh God, where to begin? So my journey started over 10 years ago. I took a BCIT web development course where I actually met Julie Tremblay, who, for those of you who don't know, she was a very prominent figure at Red Academy. And after I got out of that, I was hired on as a graphic specialist for a construction firm. Um, did some freelancing and then did some contract work with a web design firm for small to medium sized businesses. Learned a ton throughout that period, learned all about the challenges of freelancing and the challenges of employment and the benefits of both of those as well. I got to a point, though, right after kind of the crux of my web design career that I wanted to find more value in my work and understand how my users were interacting with the things I put out there because I felt a little bit like a gopher on a wheel.
Mm.
So what I did is I started researching into UX design. I looked into some courses. I did a bit of online stuff. Then I reconnected with Julie, who at this point was a instructor at Red Academy, and she gave me the 4-on-1 about it. And so I went in and didn't look back. It was great. Took the UX course right afterwards. Came out thinking I was going to be getting hired in like a matter of days. I was like on cloud nine. I was like, I've done this before. I'm just going to get hired right away. And I did not get hired for better part of a year. I leave.
Wow.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was a very hard time. And I know I wasn't the only one. The majority of our class at that time did not get hired, but
So
right away, I'm sure most of them do have jobs now, though.
what
Sorry.
year was this when you did the your cohort?
This was 2017. Yeah,
Okay.
2017. So there was when we graduated there was a bit of a lull for everybody, but for me especially, I found just it was very challenging to get my foot in the door. I didn't really know how to sell myself appropriately, I think, or properly.
Okay.
So what ended up happening was I just started networking a bit more and then freelancing a bit more. And I kind of pivoted towards freelance full time because I was like, well, if I'm not getting hired right off the bat, then I might as well just keep working, gain more experience. And I ended up working alongside John and another designer named Shirley Zhu and a developer named Kevin. And we did a few projects that were awesome in every single way. Um, and we managed to take what we learned at Red and all the information that we got from there and apply it. And we made some stuff that I thought was extremely valuable. It was one of my first things that went live that was just I was very proud of, and I could see the feedback from people was very positive. And the company that I did it for like would come back and say like, you've changed the way we've done our work for the better. Thank you so much. And that's the kind of like that's the way I got into
Mm.
this. Um, and then my wife and I decided to move to Victoria. And I got, interestingly enough, I was kind of back still on the need to get hired train. And then I met Leon. Um,
Shout
and
out to
I
Leon.
shout out to Leon. Oh, I love that guy. And he actually got me a gig at a company in Victoria, and I got to work alongside him for a better part of a year. And that was like a month or two after we moved in, so like pretty quick. Uh, I thought it was pretty quick anyway. And then from then on, I've just been working ever since. I worked for a couple of companies, and now I'm working as a service designer for a company called Button. Yeah, based in
Awesome.
Victoria. Mm-hmm.
All right. Could you share a little bit about what Button does?
Yeah, so Button is a company that contracts out to the BC government and does all sorts of stuff that are kind of software based. I am a designer of one right now, and it's a lot of fun. The people there are amazing and great, and they're all about like basically making an impact and creating value where they can. And that's one of the crux of the things that we want to do with each project that gets put in front of us.
Hmm.
Um, and we are also hiring. I just want to kind of throw that little plug in there. So if you are a service designer and you're looking for your next opportunity, we are hiring some contract-based
Nice.
opportunities that could lead into full-time employment. So just check out the Button website, button.is, and you can go to careers page and find out more about that. Yeah.
Awesome. So what type of like projects do you guys or contract work do you guys do is in relating to government services?
Yeah, so it's usually citizen facing in that, for example, I can't get into them too much because there's NDAs and there's some smoke and mirror with that sort of stuff. But we mostly do like application forms and data, data mapping data systems and stuff like that for different government needs. Like we have a environmental data mapping system that you can see on the website right now that we've worked on. That was before my time, but I got the 401 on that, and it was a really amazing project. We did just wrap up a recent project that is still kind of ongoing right now, but it was COVID related, and I can't talk too much about it, but I will just say that it was awesome. It was an awesome experience, and you will eventually hear more about it, I'm sure, down the road. But right, it was just awesome in general. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Like I wanna, before we dive deeper into that, I want to cover a little bit about like service design, and then with the opportunities with like government contracts and work, because I know you're telling me before how there's a lot of funding coming in, so that this is a good area to
Yeah.
grow. But before we do that, I want to have you share a little bit about the whole journey of like freelancing or getting out of red, and even like with someone who has experience, and I think you've done like project management prior to that, right? And
Yep.
so yeah, maybe let's talk about that. And the whole context of this new segment is just, even for me, like learning. I've been doing freelancing. Like I want to learn from you. I want to learn from others who've gone through this route. It's not popular. There's different sides of it, right? Some people
Yeah.
treat it as like a full-time job. Some people treat it as a side hustle. So I want to get like your experience, your relationship with like freelancing. What's that been like? And yeah.
Yeah, I will say one of the hard truths about freelancing is it is, for me, it was one of the most toughest experiences ever because you're not guaranteed work next week. One day you're kind of you're rolling in money, you're doing well, and then the next month you're eating ramen noodle for a week straight. There's no safety net there, and there's no guarantee that you'll have work lined up for the next like however long. So it's important, I think, to really prepare for that. Really have a buffer, a monetary buffer that you can fall back on if you need to. Like one of the things I was washing dishes while I was freelancing. I was serving coffee while I was freelancing, and that's the things that people don't really talk about too much in my experience, or I wasn't aware of. I thought it was just like you get out of class, you get right into a job, or you get into your first freelancing job, and then you're off to the races. But you have to make ends meet, and I have a family to support as well, and then there's a kid on the way, and then all this sort of stuff is happening within my life that is saying, you need to just get some cash now, because that one project you've been floating along isn't going to cut it forever. So being able to do whatever you can and really kind of leaving your ego at the door is key, because you need to look after yourself. And if that means washing dishes, waiting tables, serving beer, doing whatever you need to do, then that's fine. And I think that needs to be brought into account with freelancing in general, because we don't have we have these kind of rose tinted goggles that get put on us when we get out of a place like Red Academy, which isn't a fault of Red Academy. It isn't a fault of Brain Station or anyone. It's natural what happens. You learn all this information, you make all these connections, and then you come out of it like, I'm ready to take on the world, but then the world bites back at you, and you have to kind of shift and pivot to that. And it's that part that really never got explained to me in a certain way. And it was actually my wife who said, you need to really kind of turn around and understand like what you're doing needs to benefit everyone involved. And so that really like resonated with me, and I just made sure it's like, all right, my ego's at the door. I'll do whatever I need to do here.
Mm-hmm.
And And I think, and funny enough, as I started sharing that story, I had other people in the industry coming forward and saying, "Yeah, when I was freelancing, I was waiting tables as well. I was, serving drinks. I was doing this. I was washing dishes." It's just more of a common theme than what people are uh, belaying to, and it's more common now, even as we have these uncertain times with COVID and everything that's been going on, because we're remote now and companies aren't hiring as, I guess, as maybe as frequently as they once were, or there's some uncertainty around that. Some companies, I would say, are even hiring more because they're realizing, oh, we're remote now, we can expand out. And I think that's a big opportunity for freelancers today to pounce on. I will say that like my knowledge of the more freelancing market is limited now because I have been an employee for the past few years.
Mm.
But when I chat to freelancers, the one thing that I do hear often is, "Hey, I don't know where to get my next job," or "I don't know if what I'm doing is correct, or if the career choice I'm making is the right one, or if this company I'm with is stiffing me, or I can't get the next paycheck to come in, or the client's not paying me."
Yeah.
Like these little things that pop up that get sort of glossed over a little bit at the beginning of everything, but kind of hit hard once you really get into it. And it's hard, but it's also an extremely valuable time because you grow so much as a human being, you grow so much as a business person, as a individual, and you get stronger because of it. So if you can work through those obstacles, you'll come out the other side with more knowledge, more understanding, and more backbone into how you freelance. And one key thing I will say right now for anyone listening, for me, is a LinkedIn is important, your resume is important, your cover letter is important, your portfolio is important, but your network trumps all of that.
Right.
The connections that you make are the ones I believe will get your foot in the door at a company you want to work for. So that was great for Red as well because they had a lot of connections that happened, but as I moved to Victoria, those connections kind of fizzled a bit. But I would say to any freelancer or someone who's looking for a job in general is just grow your network, attend events, connect with people. I mean, like you and I started just having a conversation on LinkedIn, and then that turned into a meeting, that turned into a podcast. So these sort of things just sort of spiral and grow and evolve by themselves. And I think that needs to be more emphasis on that, like really getting involved in the industry, like volunteering your time, connecting with people, going to events, going to meetups, and really, and this is the hard bit for any designer, I know, because we're all introverts and it's tough to put yourself out there, but you have to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, there's no real other way to do it. You kind of have to put your what's the word, I guess, not money where your mouth is, but you really have to have that courage to walk up to someone and say, "Hey, I learned all about your company and I think it's awesome. I just wanted to say hello and introduce myself." And like 9 times out of 10, someone will receive that with open arms because they appreciate like how ballsy it is to do something like that. And if they don't, and if they kind of dismiss you, then you probably don't want to work for that company anyway. But yeah, I think the networking aspect is hugely important. That's how I met Leon. We met at a UX meetup here in Victoria. And that's how I got my first job in Victoria. It's those kind of connections that you make. Sorry, yes.
Can you name the group of that UX network? Because I know Leon talks of it like very fondly.
Yeah, it's UX Victoria. There's also there's a UX guild as well that's run by the government, but they have meetings very rarely. But when they do, they are awesome. I think they're wanting to do more, but there's been a bit of I know it's been a busy time for the government in general, as I'm sure everyone knows. But there are definitely opportunities, and I encourage anyone that wants to get in with the government to check out the Design Lab, or the Exchange Lab, not the Design Lab, that they have. I believe you can just Google it, and you'll find all sorts of great resources and links there. And they usually do things like tours and talks that you can check out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that's all. I guess the underlying thing is just like really grow your network, check out different meetups, check out different events, and also don't let it stop there at just those meetups. Like actually connect with the people that you've connected with. Like emphasize that connection. Do a message on LinkedIn if you connect with them, or shoot them an email or text or whatever you need to do to kind of keep the conversation going. Because usually what happens if people are reminded of you and a job comes up, like you're the first name that pops in their head.
Right.
The other alternative that I did was when I was looking for work, I had gotten a job before Button, and I was laid off due to COVID-19. This was after 6 months working in this company, and at this point, I was just like really not happy with the entire situation, and like, oh god, I do not want to be doing this again. And plus, I've got a kid now, which like exemplifies and really makes things a challenge. So I literally got an Excel spreadsheet together, listed all the companies that I wanted to work at within Victoria, and hounded the heck out of them. It would be apply for them, call them, mark that I've called them, and then call them again if there's no response or the person I want to talk to is not there.
Yeah.
And you'll find that people respond more quickly, or will get back to you more frequently, or will have an opportunity for you more quickly as well if you kind of go that distance. And I think that's a practice that people do anyway, with like doing like the spreadsheet and keeping track of who they've applied for and who they followed up with. But you kind of have to hound them a little. And I'm not saying be annoying, but mostly just like understand that they know who you are and they know that you are interested. How you go about that outside of phoning them every week, do it like every few days to every week. Don't do it every day, else they'll just like get pissed off with you and get a restraining order probably. But I found it was also just peace of mind for me, because I was able to feel that I was able to do everything that I could do to find work. And that helps, I think, kind of, it keeps you going as well. Because like, as I'm sure everyone knows, it takes a job to find a job. Like, if that makes sense.
Yeah. For sure. Oh, sorry. I think we lagged a little bit. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, I can hear it.
Elliot and I were just saying, I think like the phrase of the year for 2020 is, oh, sorry, you're on mute. So
Yeah. Yes.
there's a
Oh
lot
God.
or
Yeah.
can you hear me? Can you hear me? Like, it's funny.
It's very true. Very, very true.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Can you tell me like what your experience was like prior to, your time at Red? Like you were doing web design, so you knew the space pretty well, right? Like it wasn't a surprise for you to get back into it. So like what were you doing as a web designer, and how did that differ after your time at Red?
Yeah. So I could start with the graphic specialist job, where I didn't do just web design. It was like everything from social media banners to business cards to brochures. And this was a guy who just like fresh out of BCIT and had some design experience, but not a ton. And so I was thrown into the deep end with that. It was very challenging, but also very rewarding at the same time. The second portion of doing the focus on just web design was challenging, but it was also very rewarding as well, because the company I worked for was working with small to medium-sized businesses.
Okay.
And I learned a lot about WordPress that day. We basically, there was it was like we had a template, and then we rearranged that template to accommodate the different businesses that we were building for. And I actually learned a little bit more about development that day, because I was required to like code some of the stuff up. And
HTML
it was
code and all that.
yeah, HTML, CSS, a little bit of JavaScript in there. And I have a huge respect for developers who can churn that stuff out on a daily basis, because it was a little mind-numbing. Like when you have 4,000 lines of code and then there's an error somewhere, or a semicolon missing on like line 503 or whatever, and you have to dig around to find it. Yeah, that was a challenging time, and I was at a time design wise, I feel that web design was less usable and more pretty. So more Dribble inspired or more Behance inspired, or like it was very, how do I say it, like polished, but it was difficult to find the login button, stuff like that. And so you really focus on color and layout, but you don't really didn't at the time, and maybe this is my experience with just at this time, but the UX of everything was like foreign. No one really got into it that much. The sites were basic, that's just true, but I've learned even now that even the most basic site can throw off a user, and the user will not behave the way you expect them to. And that sort of got me more thinking about the user. And like before I went to Red and before I learned all the stuff I learned about user experience, it was very much a feeling of what's the next project? How quickly can we get it out the door? And how soon can we get the check? And then the next one, the next one, the next one. And that was, as I said before, like there was a lack of value in there. And one of the reasons I got into the industry is because I hate the feeling of doing the same thing over and over again. Like I learned this quickly at the age of 16 when I was bagging groceries at Safeway. And I liked it the first week, but then after the fifth week, it was like I'm doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I always said that any career that I do not want it to be like as monotonous and repetitive as that. So thankfully, design and UX and service design is always evolving and changing, and there's new processes and new things to try. And every experience, every job that you get is keeps you on your toes and requires you to use certain tools from a tool belt, and that's what I love about it.
Awesome. Well, that's a perfect opportunity to like segue into service design, because we all know about UX design. Is service design like a subset of it, or is it like a larger? Does it overlap? Like, can you
I would say
what it is?
Yeah, so service design, where user experience focuses on the user itself, service design focuses on basically organization and its processes and how that complements the user experience. I know that's not the really most basic way of saying it, but to give an example, I would say if you go to a restaurant, your user experience as a customer is, sitting down, eating the food, reading the menu, checking the server, paying, et cetera, et cetera. The service design of all of that is how the server operates the terminal to process your payment. What system do they have in place to like greet new customers? How does the chef make his ingredients or like get his ingredients together for the day? It's all the background stuff that happens. So another example, and to kind of tweak it into government, is if, say, you're applying for a mortgage or you're applying for health benefits, and then you basically fill in a form online and you send it off. The other side of that, how does that form get received? How does that get processed to the employees that have to triage and digest it and then contact the user at the other side with like a response? So it is like, I like to call it kind of the overall ecosystem of an experience from both employees, organizational process, system, and user. So it's everything interjected in between it. And I kind of fell into it, to be honest. Like I got in my first job with working with Leon. I just came in thinking, oh yeah, I'm doing UX design. This is UX design, but then it turned into something way more, and I was like, this is much more than UX design. I think it was Leon that said, oh yeah, no, you're doing service design now. I'm like, oh, okay. But I love it. It is another lens on how we interact with products that I had never seen before, and I highly encourage any designer, if you're UX or what have you, look into service design, read a few books or articles, because it is very much a paramount and growing, if not like already large, what's the word I'm looking for, thing within the design world. That's the term of the day right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
but
like we have product design, and
Mhm.
then this is now like service design. Are they similar? How, I guess, in terms of the process and the approach,
Yeah,
and like how do they differ?
yeah. So product design is mostly like, I would say, like how you interact with a product. Like if you're opening a box, if that's your product,
Mm,
box. The service aspect is how does that box get put together in the first place and get to the point where it is where it's sitting in front of you.
right.
It's that point beforehand and that point after with the user touch points involved.
Mm,
So say for example, there's a good example out there of like a theater stage. So you're watching a theater, you can see all the actors, you can see the stage, you can see the performance, but what you don't see is the crew doing the lighting, the sound technician doing the sound stuff, the actors changing costumes where they need to. That's service design. That whole
okay.
stage is service design. So it's the back end and the front end at the same time.
Nice, nice. So yeah, more like the
Yeah,
production side. Okay.
exactly. Yeah,
Have
and
you?
it's
Oh, I think we're lagging.
little
Go
little
ahead.
laggy. That's okay. And I would say it's very prominent in government right now,
Okay.
and it's growing exponentially. And I think it has a very big potential to, if it hasn't already, like span out into smaller businesses and across uh, like agencies that just focus on creative design or UX design. Because there seems to be, like, when I got into it, I don't know if this is the case right now, but it was very much oh, only Apple or Google or the
Mm,
federal government or these big companies do service design, where I find that you can integrate service design into any aspect of the work that you do. It just requires a little bit of elbow work.
right. Okay. Would the typical design thinking process apply, or is there much more to it? Like, let's say, you got your research phase, you got to, do all your market research, the user research. So does that expand, even just research alone? Does that expand into researching like the existing process of the restaurant and all that stuff? So does the scope increase significantly more, and then from there with research and then planning you could do your wireframes? Like, is it more or less the same structure or
Yeah,
process?
it is the same structure. Like the discovery phase encompasses more of the organizational processes and that kind of understanding how they do things and where the kind of pain points are lying right now in their current processes. And also that it still includes user discovery and understanding who our target user and audience is. But it's also like what are they doing right now that they're trying to address the situation? How can we improve upon it? Or if it hasn't been done before, what are other companies or other systems that are involved? How are they doing, and how can they be brought over into what we're doing right now?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Basically, the sort of process is like a discovery phase where you understand the organization, you understand your user, the ideation phase where you gather up ideas based on the discovery phase and how you kind of want to approach the next step, which is the prototyping phase. So
Mm,
very iterative step of just wireframing and prototyping, and then of course like implementing it and putting it out into the world, and then testing and making sure that it's working the way you want it to work and that users are responding and employees are responding how you want them to.
okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Mm.
Awesome. Yeah, can you give some examples, if you are able to share, on the type of projects that you've worked on, like in the government sector, and in regards to like service design?
Yeah. So one that would be prominent in my head would be a project I did a while back, working with Leon actually, was for victim services. So helping people who are victim of crimes receive health benefits.
Hmm.
And that whole process of how they go through online applying for benefits up to the other side when those benefits get received, triage, adjudicated, and how that whole system of them contacting the applicant and how that whole process works. That was a very cool project, and it was like it's those kind of projects that you kind of go, wow, I can't believe I'm doing something like this. This is
Hmm.
pretty awesome. To have that kind of impact on other people's lives. I can't talk. There's two projects at Button that again I can't go into full detail, but they are um, one of them is COVID related.
Oh,
And
wow.
I can't say like, I can't go into it because it is ongoing right now, but I will just say that it was very rewarding to do, and it does have to do with like uh, helping people get back on their feet that have been affected by COVID, and that's pretty much all I can say.
Yeah.
But it's helping basically the entire projects that I have done in service design help the public or help citizens and help the government in some way or another. And they're always different, and they're always so interesting because you're not just considering the needs of the user, the government, the client, or however. You also have to take things like policy and legislature and all these different kinds of dynamics that come into play that really make things interesting as you're going forward with your design thinking. And it makes it very challenging, but like a welcome challenge. Like it's real, if that's that's the best way I can describe it. It's not like this is kind of like the real world we live in. These are the real legislatures and policies that have been put in place. These are done a certain way, and they have to be addressed this way. And it's up to you, up to me, up to other designers to make sure that those are addressed, but also needs of the user are addressed as well, and the business as well. So that's, again, that's far cry from a 16-year-old doing baggage stuff at Safeway. It's like, it's completely different. So I do love it. I love that kind of challenge. I love that sort of dynamic of being able to connect with people who are like ingrained within the different systems or ingrained with the different communities that they that this whatever it is I might be building will affect. So that's a part of it that I really do love. Like and I think that's key going forward, like with service design, is you're providing a service for the people and the government, and it affects lives. You're impacting lives, and that's like, again, that goes beyond just churning out a simple website that maybe 10 or 20 people might click on, and that's huge for me. So get into service design, people. It's wonderful.
That's awesome. Yeah, really rewarding. And it sounds like, yeah, the level of impact is a lot higher than just like building that pretty website.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do have to ask, how's the pay in this sector, or I guess in particularly the government? Like, what can we look forward to in getting into service design and government contracts?
If you can get employed by the government, you'll do quite well. I think they usually go around, they'll have it online, but it's around 72K, 72, 85K, around there, depending on your experience. But they also have a very good like benefits package as well, because it's government.
So this is base pay as a intermediate or junior designer?
I would say intermediate. The government's pretty good in that they sort of accept all applicants that come in. Doesn't matter if you're junior, senior, intermediate. They'll filter it down to the needs that they have at that time. And it's very much, and I will say a caveat to people who apply for the government, because I have done it in the past, is you have to give a lot of time for them to get back to you.
So a couple weeks, a couple months?
3 months.
Whew. Okay.
Yeah. You're looking at 3 months. Because, and this is not a fault of the government, this is just the way it is sometimes. It's just by the time they are very busy. It's bureaucracy, and it's, right now with COVID and everything like that, they're going through this like phase of they will hire, but it will take some time before they actually get to look at your resume. But that being said, I know I talked a lot about building your network, but they already have like a system where you can sign up, put your application or your resume on there with your cover letter and the job you're interested in, and they will look at it. And you will get a response. Like, I'm sure many freelancers or would-be employees often get frustrated when they apply to a bunch of places and then they hear nothing.
Right.
And then when there's that follow, it's like, oh no, we hired someone like 3 weeks ago, or oh no, we forgot to tell you, we're not hiring for that anymore. The government's quite good. Yeah, it is. But the government's quite good with their communication. It is a little slow, but they do get back to you. And they have every time for me, which has been great. But outside of government with like contract work, it is a little less than what government would offer.
Okay.
I would say around like if you're just getting into it, like 60, 65 for new designers just getting into service design. If you have more experience, you can push up to 65, 70. This is just based from what I've seen. These numbers, and someone else may have a differing opinion, but from my experience and what companies have asked for in the past, this seems to be the general range that they stick in.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it kind of gives you way more tools in the tool belt, I would say, where if you get into just a UX job, which is great, don't get me wrong, you'll learn a ton, you'll gain a ton of knowledge, you'll learn to talk to users, you'll do a whack load of research. I'm not taking away from user experience at all. I just find that service design paints a way more broader, way more wider picture of the system that you might be building. That UX should be affected positively, but sometimes doesn't shine a huge light on. And that being said, I'm not saying that UX is bad or anything like that. It's just a case of service design like focuses on the organization.
Right.
And if you do a good job with the organization and their people and their processes and their props and everything, then the UX of that from the customer or the user's perspective should be a positive experience. So they marry themselves and they go hand in hand. So I encourage people that are pursuing a career in UX or learning about UX to have a look at service design. Like read a book, read any book. But they're definitely looking up some articles. There's a couple of books I would recommend. I have one actually right here. Shameless plug.
Yeah. Okay.
It's called A Civic Technologist's Practice Guide by a lady named Sid Harrell, and she is a very prominent user researcher with the federal government, or she's had experience with the federal government anyway, down in the United States. So she's fantastic. I encourage, like, she has a bunch of talks that are great to look at, and I highly recommend like getting into if you're interested in service design in government, then I highly recommend checking out her book, because a lot of things she says in here I'm like running headlong into on a daily basis where I do my job. So I highly recommend it.
Very cool.
Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It's funny, like I literally have a book in front of me as well, and it's actually in service design.
Oh, hang on.
You have the same thing?
Oh, there it is. I also recommend this one. It's very good.
So good. Yeah, and so I picked it up and it's pretty good, and it's actually very colorful.
It is. Yeah, I really like it's done by Lou Down, and they are just fantastic. Like it's interesting. The kind of, not to get all geeky with typography or anything, but the typography is just something else in there.
Yeah, like chapter breakup.
Exactly. It's a very easy read, and yeah, I highly recommend that one. And it's very busy. Another one I recommend, I'm hoping I'm not going to break my bookshelf when I do this, is something called, and over it goes. Sorry, give me 1 second here.
Are these the books that are holding up your laptop?
Yes. The other one I recommend is called This is Service Design Doing.
Ooh,
okay. By O'Reilly. It's a fantastic book. It goes really in depth with the service design process, and has a whackload of case studies.
Very cool.
And comes highly recommended because I took a Nielsen. I guess I should have mentioned this in my journey, but I did take some courses with Nielsen Norman.
You're legit. You're part of
legit. Yes.
Part of the club.
I'm part of the club. It's on my LinkedIn tag. I had to, one of the course I took was Service Blueprinting 101, and the instructor really recommends that book, and I have gone through it, and it is a fantastic resource to go through. So I highly recommend that one too.
Very cool. Yeah, like it's funny. So I read this. It was good, and then life got busy and I stopped. But I was literally just reminded of this when you talked about the books.
Oh, that Good Service is a great book, and I feel very very ashamed that it was not the first thing that popped in my head. I will say it's probably because I've been reading Sid's book for the past little while, and that's just in the forefront of my mind. But
Yeah.
Good Services is fantastic. Definitely pick it up. I mean, you have it, I have it, so it's got to be good, just
Yeah,
based
like
on our.
so far, so in the how many pages? I'm only it's so shameful. I'm only on chapter 2. So 57 pages in. Like I did like how like service design, it's one of those things similar to UX where it's like almost common sense, like anyone can kind of
Mhm.
relate to it, but they did talk about like the history of how technologies opened up and created new industries, like shifting from like what is it, the gram, or like what is, oh wow, my brain's dead. Yeah, just sending like telegrams, right? And then
Mhm.
there was a whole service, and then that evolved into the postal service, and so that opened up industry of like mailman and sorting out mails and the whole infrastructure behind that. And then from that, like the evolution of communication, and then it went
Mhm.
from postal services to telephones, and then that opened up a whole new service and industry. So it's neat because we'd think that technology is almost like what's where there's that show humans need not apply or something. It's talk about like
Yeah.
how automation and technology is going to like drive humanity out of jobs, but I think if anything, like this proved that like new technologies
Yeah.
actually introduce more industries, more services, and more jobs. So
Absolutely.
yeah, and then from telephone to the internet, and now internet, like we have whole, everything's on the internet now, so it's really
Yeah,
cool.
ironically, we wouldn't have jobs if there wasn't an internet. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there. Like it is crazy how technology evolves over time, and how we kind of look back, how it was 10 years ago to how it is now, and how design has evolved with it, um, and how we kind of turn from this. Almost when the web was first starting out and we had animated gifs everywhere, and I think like you can look at the old 1997 Space Jam website,
Yeah.
it's still live to this day, and you can get an idea of what the web was like back then and how it's grown to this sort of uh like almost people need access it every single day, and it's grown into a such a mainstay of people's lives that
Mhm.
as soon as you wake up in the morning, you turn your phone on, you access your email, you access, like, we're all digitally connected, and so these products have just spawned in such a crazy way that I personally was like, wow, this is insane.
Mm.
But that whole rumor that you were touching on of like technology taking jobs away, I don't think so. And it's more of a case of like we as humans just need to evolve with technology and understand that, like, some of the jobs that were here 50 years ago aren't going to be here today, and same case 50 years before that,
Right.
because of like that's just the way things go. And I think as like my kid's gonna be embedded in technology in a way that I never was, and so is yours, I'm sure.
Hmm.
um, and
That's
I and that's just
yeah.
the way it is. Yeah.
I do want to ask. I want to get your opinion because like, do you like for government? I mean, in terms of technology, they're the last industry to adopt like the latest technology. Um,
Mm.
but it seems like where you're at now, like service design in government, and I know I've worked in some SaaS companies. Like, here's a little plug, Basic Gov, which is now called Clarity, but they digitize like permitting process, and like it was all paperwork, but now it's all digitized. So do you think, like, why do you think governments are like so slow to adopt? Is it because they have to like maintain those legacy systems just for like those who are they don't adapt quickly, or do you think we're in a shift now where government's finally catching on and maybe there's going to be a disruption in that industry?
I think it's a little bit of both. From what I've seen, like legacy systems have been in place like what for 20, 25 years within government. And when they get embedded that way, they get connected on so many different processes, they get used by different staff members, and then like policies come out and those legacy systems kind of almost become cemented as the be all and end all for a branch of government, how they do their work. So one job I can actually pull on was a few months ago, was with BC Procurement Services, and we actually had to update their legacy system on their employment side. So like when new procurements come in, how do those get triaged? How do those go through the process of receiving funds from the government? And they showed us their old system, and it was like, oh man, it was hard to look at. It was very confusing. And the thing is there's this kind of caveat that people think that government's outdated. I feel like government knows it's outdated and is trying really hard to like pull themselves out of that legacy kind of set, but it requires so many hoops that they need to jump through, and requires more training and making sure that like laws and policies and legislature are all taken into account when new systems come in. So it's like, if there's a new system that's come in, how is it going to be improved? How is the information going to be displayed? How is it going to make someone's job easier? And how can we make sure that legally it's sound? Like maybe there's information on there that employee number 1 can see, but employee number 2 cannot. And the legacy system kind of dealt with that in one way, but now that we're updating it and technology is different and we have to employ it into this new technology, then suddenly it's a whole other kind of bag of worms and opens up this other discussion. And that's kind of where I think the slowness happens, is when that sort of, not breaking point, but when that sort of lag happens of shifting technologies and trying to have an employer or having a government employee keep up with it, right, to make sure that they do their job in the same way that they were doing it in the legacy system, because it's tough. Right. It's a hard transition for them, because we all assume, oh, they're computer literate, they know what they're doing in like with everything. That's not always the case. They might know how to like operate the computer based on their job and what they do, but their job might also be like going out into the field and like being with communities or doing something with the public and coming back and like using their computer for like a couple hours a day or half an hour a day. But once you change it, and that's how they've been used to doing it since like the year 2000 or 2010, and then you come along and you change all of that, it's like, whoa, hold up. If you're changing this, make sure you have this, this, and this, and this. And what also sometimes happens is it's an opportunity for governments like, well, can we improve? If we're improving upon this, can we also improve upon this, this, and this, all this other stuff that we've been having headaches with? And so that evolves into another conversation. And I think that's kind of where the slowness comes. But I think that's just the natural way, because it is such a complex system. It's such a complex government's like, and I don't have to tell anyone this, but like a government is a complex architecture in of itself. And if you change one thing here, it can affect 50 things over here. And that's one of the things that you have to be cognizant of and just be aware of if you're getting into government work.
And then I guess there's the decision-making process too, because it's all very democratic, right? So then if you suggest one idea, it's got to go up the food chain, and then you get approval, and then wait down. By that time that you get approval, it's like 6 months later.
So that sometimes happens. Yeah. It's gotten, I will say, in the few years that I've been working with government, it's gotten a lot better. There's been times where we have waited for decisions for weeks, if not months, on certain things, but because it's such a big project, you can work on something over here while you're waiting for a decision on that. But I think that government is now turning around, and like, as I said, they have the digital exchange lab, they have the digital marketplace where they've really opened their doors. And this kind of segues into another part of of what government's trying to do, is they're opening their doors to everyone. If they have a digital project, they don't just kind of shell it to themselves and like contract out inwards, because they've found that doesn't work in the past, or it takes way too long. Right. So it gives an opportunity for businesses who, startups even, to bid on these projects that like some of them are worth like $500,000, which is great for a startup agency if you can get in there.
Awesome.
And I think that's one of the great things that government is doing right now. It is really understanding that they're really understanding that in order for them to grow in a digital sense, they need to integrate the digital world around them. Right. And they are doing that through this marketplace. And like I had a chat with one of the guys who started it, great guy named Zach Woodward, and he said like the biggest reason why he did it was just like it was a pain in the ass to try and get something done within
Right.
the
That's service
government.
design, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
service design, and it was costing money, and they only used like they moved the thread like the needle like that much,
Wow.
like a little bit, and then right after they started doing the digital marketplace stuff, like people were able to provide insights that they hadn't seen or provide options that they didn't know about before, and were able to actually get projects launched. And
Huh.
that's why you see now, I find now that government's technological footprint is a lot bigger than what it was like years ago.
Mm.
And they're still improving upon everything. I mean, like I know it's challenging sometimes, like to fill in certain forms to receive things like benefits or apply to a mortgage or all that sort of stuff. But they are trying to improve upon that, and I think like they're doing like wow, like I don't want to say a phenomenal, amazing, 100% job, but they're doing a really good job. Um, to facilitate that, and they've gone to a point now where they recognize that this, in order for them to grow,
Right.
they need to help other people to grow, and it's that giving back, it's that communal aspect, and I think it's huge, and it's actually a very special treat to kind of be living in Victoria, where I'm like not far from like where government operates,
Right. The
and being
parliament
able
there. Yeah.
the parliament and being able to sit in the same room as people who make those kind of decisions and get their insights and get their point of view, and it's something that I don't know if it's been broached upon in the past, but it really affects things for a positive, and I think in the long run it'll definitely benefit not only just the government but the people that are using government services down the road, and they're working their butt off to make sure that that happens. Like the BC Public Services team, like their design team is just phenomenal. Like they are some of the smartest people I've had the pleasure of being able to chat with, and they are very aware of like shortcomings and legacy systems, all that sort of stuff, and they are working to remedy that as best they can. And being a part of that and being able to help out where we can as like an external company is has been fantastic. So
Mm.
yeah, I think government is in the up and up, and I would be surprised
Nice.
if you could expect to see some good improvements down the road.
Oh, I feel like COVID has been such a wake up call for governments, and
Yeah.
I mean, like they can't even. I wonder if all the meetings are on Zoom now, so they're like forced to adjust, and then they're realizing, oh, we need more implementation of new technologies, otherwise we're gonna fall
Oh
apart.
yeah, no, it really is. Like we use MS
Oh,
Teams,
right.
and
Mhm.
as that's the same as what government uses. So we get brought into a project, we get brought into their teams, and then we can chat freely with them whenever we need to. We don't need to schedule an appointment. Most usually, they're very busy, so sometimes
Yeah.
they respond, sometimes they don't. But yeah, being able to communicate with them, I think has gone up. Like the requirement for like we have sometimes have daily stand-ups with them
Oh, cool.
all over Teams, and it's very easy now to kind of get everyone together in the same space because you're all remote and you
Mm.
can be wherever you want to be, um, to get like the day started or the job done. And it's been, I think that's been a really big boon. I mean, like I don't want to say COVID's been a positive in any way, shape, or form, but if there was any silver lining
Mm.
that it can be taken, it's really like the processes, and not just what government does, but I think what every company, digital company out there is now starting to just sort of reevaluate the value of being remote, and the work that gets done because of it, and that sort of initial fear of like, oh, if they're working remote, then they won't be able to maybe have the same output as they would in the office because there's so many distractions. And while distractions are there, we've kind of, for lack of a better word, evolved.
Partially true. Yeah.
Partially true, very partially true. I have a, as I'm sure you know, as a new dad, you have
Right.
a daily distraction, but that doesn't take away from like I think the output, as far as quality goes. I think it improves upon it because we don't have that
Mm.
sort of stressor of needing to go into the office and plan that day. You can literally like wake up, shower, and then roll over into your to your laptop and then get fired up. And some people like they love that. I mean, some people
Yeah.
don't, but for me personally, I love it. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, and that just affects the job experience for as a positive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like there are people who are thriving like crazy, and some people
Mhm.
who are just suffering with the adjustments just because it's not the best. Um,
Yeah.
I'm no that's great. So there's a huge future for the government sector to grow in the tech space. And then companies like Button, like they are independent companies who are basically independent like contractors, or they outsource. So government will issue out these contracts, and then companies like Button would take on those contracts and then
Yeah.
issue them out.
So yeah. So we so the kind of an idea of how the process works, like the government will post a job, we'll bid on it,
With
and then
RFP.
yeah, with an RFP exactly,
Yeah.
and kind of submit our information. And if we get past that stage, then we do a kind of a code challenge, and if we pass that, we do something called a scenario, team scenario, where a few government employees and the Button team come together and they give us a challenge, and then we work through that challenge in like I think it's 2 hours. It's like a whiteboarding challenge essentially,
Mm.
but it's a lot of fun. It's a little nerve wracking, I will admit, like as any whiteboarding esque challenge is. But you do it a couple times, and it starts to get a little easier over time. But it really stresses the how you approach a problem as a team, how you work together, how the government can see how you work together, how you bring government into your work cycle, and make sure that they're involved as well. And it's just a fantastic way in which they can gauge a team at like a quick in a quick process. So they have like this awesome filter system for companies, and it is great because it's open to anyone. Anyone can jump in there. I mean, I'm sure there are some like you by yourself can't like jump in there and try to bid on a project.
Right.
You have to have an actual team.
I can't
But
commit to a $500,000 budget. Okay.
no, I know. Sorry,
Yeah.
unfortunately, the podcasting aspect of many government projects are few and far between. um,
Okay.
but
So,
it's yeah, it's a great system that they have.
and like, can you give an idea? I know you did say like one contract can be as high as like 500,000, but what would be like the potential like projections in terms of government funding in these projects?
It's tough to say because I'm not privy to like what government's overall budget
Okay.
is for these. They have a system in of themselves that I'm sure is private, and I don't have access to that. I wish.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
but you can see like the lowest I've seen a project go is like 10 grand, which is
Okay.
still nice for a new company.
Mm-hmm.
The highest has been 500, and there's been I think there's been like a $1 million one in there as well.
Mm.
But yeah, the higher those projects go, like the longer they are. So like the 10,000 might be like a 2-3 monther. The $1 million one will be like a year or two,
Mm-hmm.
maybe longer.
Okay.
So just to
Gotcha.
give you kind of an idea how that looks. But
Very cool. Okay.
yeah.
That's good. It's very promising.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. All right. I think that kind of like wraps up all the things we want to talk about. Is there anything else like you wanted to share before we
Um,
wrap up?
not I guess my final point would just be if there are any, because I've been in this situation myself as a former freelancer and as someone who has looked for work and getting discouraged um, throughout that process is basically don't. It sounds so cliche, but don't give up. You're doing great. No, in all seriousness, like it's 9 times out of 10, it's not you as a designer, it's the company's process and how they bring on new talent that is lacking. And if it takes a year, if it takes 6 months, it doesn't matter. Like you will. I am positive that like if you are creative and you're good at what you do and you understand your process and you will get your foot in the door. You just have to work at it. You have to grow that network. You have to push kind of to like get again your foot in that door and really get your face known and your voice known. And you have to do it by any means necessary, for lack of a better word. I placed another example. An old UI friend of mine, her name is Kat Dogsford. She's also a Red alum. And one of the things she did is she printed out these cartoon posters of herself with like a speech bubble that said, "Hire me." And she just plastered it on this company's window that she wanted to work for. She didn't get that job, but she did get hired, like, because that's the sort of tenacious person that she is. She did get hired eventually, and that's how you have to be. That's just one example of many of what you need to do to kind of, you have to go crazy a little bit to find that perfect job. You have to kind of think outside the box. And the reason I say that is that system of cover letter, resume, LinkedIn is great, and portfolio is great, but everyone else is doing it at the same time. And I know there's talk of like, you stand out with how your resume sounds or how your cover letter sounds, which is true. But if you're one stack of 500, then chances are you might not get looked at all. And so you have to find other means to kind of get yourself known to that company. And I'm sure there are career coaches and people with more experience in this who could word this a lot better than I could, but I pull from my own experience. And if there's any advice I can pass on, it would be that. So keep going, and you're doing great.
That's great. I almost feel like we should do a panel to get some recruiters in here, or like HR seniors, and just talk about the whole process. Because yeah, you're right. I'm glad you said that. Like, it's may not be our skill as a designer, but it's more so on the process of how companies like go through applications. And
absolutely,
and it's a big gap. Yeah,
it is a big gap. And the weird thing is companies are still hungry and starved for talent, and I see job applications popping up all over the place, whether it's like your basic Indeed or if it's like through a Slack group. There is demand for what we do, and it is just a matter of like picking the place that's good for you, or doing that wide buckshot and applying at multiple places and then trying to get yourself through that door.
Okay, I have to pause you there, because like, so the jobs are there, the opportunities are there.
Yeah,
and this is what we've been fed when we go to boot camps or other schools, right? Like, the industry's growing, it's never been better. But like you experience, like I experience, like when we come out and you start applying, it doesn't match that, right?
Yeah, no, and that's because it doesn't happen often through the jobs you want to get often aren't obtained through resume, cover letter. They are. I mean, obviously people look at it, but it's word of mouth. It's word of mouth. Like, if I'm a boss, or if you're a boss and you want to hire a new designer, and your design lead says, "Oh, hey, yeah, I know someone who might be a good fit."
Right.
That's how that conversation, how that chain happens. And that's why I always say, like, grow your network, get to know people, and really get embedded with that, because you will find that you'll get your first job just through word of mouth. Just be like, "Oh yeah, I heard about this guy who," and we have his resume on here. If you're doing your due diligence, you've already applied for them. And that's how I got the job working with Leon, is I had actually applied to that company that day. And then I met Leon at that meetup, and I got a phone call like 2 days later for an interview. And I think that's just the commonality of it. That's just the way it is these days. Like, if I'm a business owner, and maybe other business owners can contest this, it's like, but I don't want to look through a huge stack, like yay high, of resumes and cover letters, because A, it's a lot of work, and B, I feel guilty not giving everyone an equal opportunity. So really find a way to impress. I'm saying me as a business owner, because you don't want to impress me, but like really impress upon me that you want this job, and like make yourself seen, and how you go about that. You have to be creative. If it's like a phone call, or if it's a poster up on a glass wall, that I leave up to you. But don't be a pain in the butt, and don't like hound them every single day, because again, you'll get that restraining order instead of that job.
Okay, so like, let's say I want to get seen and noticed. What do you think if I started posting all my like daily UI challenges on Instagram or on LinkedIn? Would that be a good practice or tactic to like be noticed and seen. And so let's say you apply, and obviously sometimes there in the job application there's that field form that says like what's your LinkedIn
Hmm.
or whatever social media handle. Would that be a good way to showcase your work a little bit too?
Yeah, it depends on the kind of jobs you want to get.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I find that UX designers and service designers are often hired based on their process more so than just their design ability. Design ability is important. Don't get me wrong.
Right. So the case study.
The case studies, yes, the
Okay.
like how you approach a problem and how you deal with any obstacle that pops up
So
through work that problem.
so this is neat because I did chat with some seniors who are hiring for like UX roles, and the case studies are there. I've
Hmm.
actually heard like, and they have the same problem where they have 100 applications, so they actually don't spend the time reading through the whole case study, but yet
Hmm.
UX designers spend so much time like refining the written content and all that. So it's tricky because it's like you're trying to compress a lot of information into, like a 5 second glance, like paragraph.
Yeah,
So
the best.
that's like, how do you do that? It's it's
So
it's
the
tricky
best
for
way.
UX.
Yeah, no, I think that the best way to go about that is if one of the ways I went about it, I did it on my portfolio, then I changed it. I don't know why, but is having like a Coles Notes version of the project that you did. Like this was the challenge. This is how we approached it. This was the result. For full details of this case study, click on the Medium article down here,
Right.
which has the whole thing. If people want to go down that road, because often what I've found is what I hope I'm not misquoting here, but like what employees like to look for is how you approach the problem, what the result was, and how you benefited the business
Right.
for the better. Like what was the impact that you had, and how did it impact the business? How did it impact the user? Like, did you raise profits by 20%? Did you cut down the time of a user going through a system by 10 minutes? Like
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that is a big one, and that's also very tough because usually it's you don't get to see those kind of results, you don't have access to those analytics, and that's where the challenge lies. So it's you have to say, like, you usually what I recommend at that point is you contact the business that you did this thing for
Mm-hmm.
and be like, hey, did I help? you know for, for lack of a better word, or did it make an impact? And they'll often see, you'll often get like a positive response to that because they take your change and they'll ingrain it into their own so quickly that they just kind of continue onward as if nothing's changed, and that's a good thing because good
Mm-hmm.
UX is not noticeable. Um,
Right.
so like, but if you call them up and just be like, hey, this thing I did, can I just ask, like, have you experienced a positive change? Has you what's been some of the analytics on what you've seen? Like, if I could just get a quote from you, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And they should give it to you. I mean, I don't know why they would withhold that sort of stuff, but yeah, that's kind of like how you want to break it down. Of like, if you have your LinkedIn, if you have these, and I'm not, and I say this again with the footnote of like, I'm not a LinkedIn expert. I am not a career coach. You could take my words or don't take my words. Totally up to you. But in my experience, I haven't posted any like UI challenges or any Dribble or any Behance or anything like that. I have posted articles that have been attached to the work that I have done, which I think has way more oomph
Mm-hmm.
in the industry that I am in, because like, I think articles, like, other people are writing about the work that you do, so there has to be some substance there, or fingers crossed that there is anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas daily UI challenges often lead to here's a pretty picture that I've done, isn't it pretty? And the employee might look at it and say, that looks pretty, and that will be the end of that.
Right.
And I find that like, you can get away with sometimes posting that sort of stuff, and I'm not saying not to, but the industry, I find, is tilting more towards how you place value, how you create value, and how you place impact, how you create impact with the work that you do, rather than just making a pretty form or a pretty login page. If you can do things like, this is a login page and this is how I designed it and this is why I did it and this is what it was for, then you might have a little bit more backbone to go upon. Um,
What do you think
yeah.
are those like good metrics? I know it all depends on the company and the industry, but like, what are some good metrics to measure impact? Like, are we dealing with, you know, conversion rates? Like, what type of ROI in terms of like money or things like that? Like, what do you
For
see?
me,
Yeah.
it's the community impact. How are
Okay.
you improving the community in general? This is just me though. I don't know about businesses in general. As you said,
Right.
it's different for every business.
Yeah.
But for me, if I'm looking for work, I want to see what positive change have you done for the people around you? How have you gone out there and improved someone's life?
Right.
And that's like the real, for me, the core of it all is why we get into this work, is not to just make pretty pictures like pretty
Right.
login page, but we're changing people's lives. And that's why I loved about Red, is like I really got that shoved in my face with the community projects and with people who are like given the opportunity to create something with us, and don't have the funds to do it in like the normal sense of going through an agency. And you see their eyes, they see their face, their excitement, they are jazzed, and they make you jazz, and that sort of thing is like what makes it all worthwhile, I think.
Mm.
And that's where I see the value of anything is, if someone came to me like, I made this application that enables first responders to get to an accident more quickly. I mean, that's a lot to ask for, a solo applicant, um, but that sort of thing is, it resonates more with me, and it's something that I would, if I was employing, that would be something I would remember more,
Mm.
rather than like, I made a nice application form for this real estate site. Not that I'm taking away application forms for real estate sites, but you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Um,
Connecting it to the people and
Connecting it to the
yeah.
people, and I mean, if you can really understand like what you said before with like what business you're going into, like maybe you want to say like, I saved this company money, or I cut down costs, or well, the same thing,
Yeah. I would
but like
assume
save
money
time.
is a main metric to
So yeah, money, if you can get in there with monetary gain for a company, then you've got a good foot in the door. Ironically, that's kind of hard to do as a new designer when you haven't worked on that sort of stuff and you're trying to get into that industry.
yeah.
That kind of comes up to a, this is how I would do it, and this is where I believe the benefit would come, and then it's
Mm.
kind of up to that company to agree with you or not. And that's the challenge again with being a freelance or being like a new designer getting into the field. um, but yeah, no, I empathize with juniors. I empathize with freelancers. Like getting that first job, getting that other job, is really challenging. And when you have external uh, elements like family, life, partner, all that sort of stuff coming into to a surface,
Mm-hmm.
it adds stress. It adds that distraught sort of feeling that you kind of get of everything kind of piling on you. So I really encourage anyone, like, if you've worked your ass off all day trying to find work and you've gotten nowhere, take a break, take a breath, meditate, go for a walk, get away from the computer, just get some fresh air, focus on like your mental health, because that's the big thing you need to have sharpened. And it's not something I did enough, I think, when I was looking for work, and I really I suffered for it, for lack of a better word. Um, and So if you can really like focus on yourself as much as you're focusing on looking for a new job, then you'll bounce back quicker. You'll be able to rebound faster if you get a no or whatever, and you'll be able to move on, essentially. And you don't dwell on these sort of things. A healthy mind, just holy crap, it makes all the difference.
Mm, for sure. Great
Mm.
tips. Thank you so much. Yeah, these are very timely advice. Because I know there's other people doing like part-time freelance side gigs. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's very helpful. If you guys are listening and you found this helpful, let us know. And this is something I want to tackle more into this new segment, and um, finding the tips, advice on how to navigate through like freelancing or side gigs, and just get that extra buck or two, or turn it into a full-time job. So yeah.
Mm.
All right. Any last words?
No, I will not go off on a rambling tangent
Okay.
again.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me.
Appreciate you having be with us, and we hope to maybe have you on as a guest again, returning guest down the road.
I'd be happy to come back for sure.
Yeah, this is definitely the longest we've ever had recorded on the podcast. So my brain's
Yeah, my
dead. I
fault.
can't
Sorry.
even form words right now. So
Sorry, mine too. My throat is kind of just dry up to as the Sahara right now. So yeah, I
Oh,
feel you.
that's great. Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, guys.
All right.